Namaste, good morning, and welcome everyone to the second day of the International Sustainability Conference. We have some interesting talks lined up for you today. The first talk will be on sustainability innovations in everyday environment. This talk will be given by Professor Lawrence Surendra. He is a professor and a council member at the Sustainability Platform Asia. He is skilled in sustainable development, research design, program evaluation, lecturing, and editing, with a demonstrated history of working in the think tanks industry. He has worked closely with and has been a senior advisor to the Stockholm Environment Institute, Sweden. And he has worked with various UNESCO offices and basically in different educational platforms of the United Nations. In Thailand, China, and South Korea. So now I welcome Professor Surendra and request him to share his valuable experiences and his knowledge with us. Over to you, Professor. Thank you.
Sir, you are on mute.
Professor Surendra, you are on mute, sir.
You're on mute, sir. Yeah.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, yeah, we can hear you.
No, there. Is it unmuted? Yes. Screen share. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yeah, sorry, my laptop crashed 2 days back. So I'm trying to do with my friend's laptop and getting so a little bit of hassles. I want to do screen share of my slides. Shall we do screen slides?
So your screen is already shared.
Already set? You can share. Okay. So let me just quickly go. 20 minutes I have. Okay. Next slide. Basically, I'm trying to focus more on the urban areas since you're also based in Bombay and all the sorrows and troubles that Madras, my home city, is going. I'm safely ensconced in Mysore on the farm, but that doesn't make a difference.
Surendra, Professor, request you to speak a little louder, please, sir.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, basically, I want to focus on.
Good now, good. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Good, sir.
Yeah, basically, I want to focus on urban areas and quickly run through some solutions that TSP partners are doing. I'm talking about urban areas not only because this conference is being hosted from Bombay, but I can see the troubles my friends and citizens in Madras, my home city, is going through, even though I'm safely bubbled on the farm in Mysore. But there's nothing that we can say definitely in terms of future and disasters and so on, which we're going to discuss in the next session. For shortage of time, I'll just run through in a little telegraphic sense. From an ecological sustainability perspective, the critical issue that we need to address is scale. Scale is a complex concept, but an important dimension of our life. But none of us live with any reference to scale. That's something we need to think about. I leave it more as a point of reflection. In economics, the three fundamental concepts are actually allocation, distribution, and scale. But I'm sure the economists here, teachers, and others will know that standard economics, be it in our textbooks, teaching or practice, never addresses scale or talks about scale. But they are around issues of scale. I'll let you reflect on it. Maybe you can think about it. Which is this, right? Sorry. Okay. Normally, quickly to say, allocation refers to allocating resources and incomes. And there's a belief that the market can do it efficiently, though we know by experience that has not happened. And when the market fails to do it, the state somehow in a very clumsy way tries to take care of distribution from the perspective of income distribution and so on. But scale is never addressed. Matter of fact, the way our governments, state and corporate function is everything is thought of in a mega scale, in a large scale, and which we know, but that also causes problems because there are problems of equity, problems of unsustainability, and so on. And civil society also, when we start looking for solutions, we don't look at scale in terms of the size of our own organizations, the number of people we work, the communities that we relate to, and so forth. So I'll just leave you to reflect on it while I proceed with my presentation. So from the perspective of innovation, and I call it innovation in daily life, because the people I'm going to talk about are trying to address these problems of daily life. A point that last night when I was trying to manage this laptop and put it in, I couldn't put it in, is that from a TSP point of view, and I'm sure our friends who organize this conference and
Sorry, sir. DSP?
TSP.
What is that, sir?
Sustainability platform.
SP.
TSP.
T. T for temporary.
The sustainability platform. TSP.
You'll get the logo there. Okay.
So it is T for Tanzania. TSP.
Yeah. T for sugar and S for T for sustain. T for Tanzania, S for sugar, and P for passion. Okay. So what we are trying to basically advocate is that while we muddle around this large scale that is overwhelming us, we can do some breaking of that scale by interventions. What we call breaking out of the grid. Breaking out of the grid, whether it's energy, waste, water, and so on. Water makes it difficult, but even water, there are solutions for not being dependent on that grid. So what I'm going to do is talk about everyday life, starting with household waste, and basically give you a couple of slides about the work of our friends, because I thought it's much better to talk in this concrete, practical sense than get into more in-depth discussions on the challenges facing us in terms of sustainability. The household level waste solution, one of the innovations done is by our friends from Orbin, Anjana Iyer, who's part of our council. She, with other people, she basically was very actively involved in the solid waste problems in Bangalore. She was one of the amicus curiae in the famous petition in the Bangalore High Court. But they also, I mean, they were a civil society organization working at a voluntary level, but they also realized they need to get into innovative products which can actually provide products for people who are well-meaning in terms of wanting to handle their waste, but for various existential reasons may not be able to do it. Of course, we are talking of an income bracket who can afford this, but then the income brackets are offered who can afford this are all those are the people who generate a lot of waste and cause problems to the rest of society. So they've done something called Orbin Solo, which is meant for individual houses. Orbin Stacks is for apartments. It's hassle-free. You get compost out of it, which you can use for a vegetable gardening, and in that sense, do a recycling of your waste and make sure that you are not dumping your waste like in Delhi and other places onto the city and causing problems. For example, Delhi, which is choking now, nobody tells us in the television and anywhere that one of the major problems of Delhi is the burning of their urban waste. There's any amount of data available, but you will notice in the television discussions, they talk about stubble burning, they talk about vehicles, but they don't talk about the individual problems that the people who are suffering it actually create. So if we can actually reduce your burden on the urban waste system by these kind of interventions, you are contributing to reducing the scale of the problem. These are the three co-founders, Anjana, Mrinal, and Dinesh, who are part of the team that is promoting. They've done a lot of work, also large-scale waste recycling in fish markets in Hyderabad and so on. I don't have the time to go into it. I'll just leave you to go to that website and look for more information. So from household waste, there's a question of large-scale waste. Now, how do you handle large-scale waste, particularly in places like Bombay, you generate huge waste, and you know the problem of that burning that happens and so on. So this problem is being tackled by another friend of ours called Radix. I couldn't put the slide in. Radix Life Spaces, who have set up systems for generating large quantities of waste, 1.7 MT per day, as you can see on the slide, which is then converted, very importantly, to bio-CNG, that is bio-compressed natural gas, which means it can be supplied straight to Indian Oil. They have an arrangement with Indian Oil, and Indian Oil then sells the natural gas. So there are a very good circular arrangement again, where you take large-scale waste, convert it through biomethanation to CNG, and CNG immediately becomes a non-fossil energy which you can use. Out of it comes a liquid slurry, which is very useful for as a fertilizer, and also organic manure. Generate large quantities of organic manure, which can be used in gardens and farming and so forth. This is basically the bio-CNG. It's environment friendly. It's a nascent industry. It has a high capex. It's commercial customers. At the moment, the world's largest CNG is being operated in Punjab. They had India's largest in Bangalore, which they are now shifting location, but when it goes into production, it will be India's largest bio-CNG. The one in Ludhiana in Punjab is the world's largest in terms of the production of there they're basically handling dairy waste and other waste. This is something that's very suitable for Bombay. Me and my colleague Anil Abbar have discussed this very often. And maybe we can look at it and how we can maybe promote it and ways of going about it. You had your environment minister yesterday, maybe dialogues and conversations with such people as to talk more on some practical interventions of this sort. This is a revenue model: organic waste, urban waste, chicken litter, and so forth. Cost of production is at 22 rupees a kg. The government has fixed the revenue for the moment at 46, but presently they're actually getting much more per kilogram when the bio-CNG comes up in terms of what they're supplying Indian Oil. I'm not going to, I'm leaving this slides with Anand and his colleagues. So later on, if some of you want to do it, I'll also try to refine it a bit, because given my laptop crash, I had to do all this very urgently, and I didn't have access to a lot of my own material. The other very important group I want to talk about is RQ Plastics. I think they're doing phenomenal work. They take all kinds of plastic waste, millions of tons, and make it into upscale, very good products like roof tiles, floor tiles for outside and so forth. And I really suggest you go to their website, RQ Plastics, and see they have plants in several parts. Transportation of this is not very expensive because very light material. And when you use it as roof tiles and so on, you avoid using very scarce mud, and you burn it with wood and use fossil fuels. All that you do. But most important is that you're recycling a waste of large quantities. And they're very good material in their website about the circular economy they follow. These are aeronautical engineers who, when asked for doing a project with their professor said, don't think of space, think of all the problems down on Earth. And three of them, Kirtana, Akash, and one more person, have done this. Now, these are all their products. pavement tiles, boats, so forth. And you can go inside and look at it. I'm just for doing it like a trailer with you. Now, the last part I want to deal with wastewater and sustainable sewage treatment plants. This is another major problem in our cities. As the flooding in Madras goes on, you can imagine what happens when the sewage treatment plant, the sewage plants break and the sewage gets in. Now, people are worried only about the flooding in Madras. But once the floods recede and everything dries and all the microbial activity gets, you'll find the large scale diseases and others happening. This is, from Bombay also. So here there's another decentralized solution for apartments, for houses. And I want to tell you also in the last Madras plants, this eco-STP was installed in the Mathematical Science Institute, Math Science Institute in Madras and a few other places. They've installed it in large hospitals like Philomena Hospital, Martha's Hospital, John's Hospital in Bangalore and so forth, in other places. There are two companies, I'll come to both companies. In the last 2015 Madras floods, the only sewage plants that were not affected were the eco-sewage treatment plant. This is something very critical to consider in the context of disasters, because disasters are not going to reduce, it is going to accelerate. Frequency is also going to be bigger. We'll talk about it in the next session. I'll just run through the principles of it. It is done using biomimicry principle, using the cow's stomach as a diagram is there. A ruminant stomach converts grass into milk. Their biologists the same method, convert bad water to good water. We keep cow stomach process. And they've been mentored by the Biomimicry Institute in Montana. This here two bottles that you can see. One is the dirty water gone through by their eco-STP, and it's clean water. Incidentally, places like Singapore are now doing these kind of methods to actually even supply drinking water. They call that new water. This is the construction of the eco-STP. Once it is done, there's very little maintenance. You can see here, it's below this walkway. No space is taken. STP is there. This is in a school where other activities happen on top. This is in a parking lot. So you stay space also. So it's a biophilic design. And then there is manure coming out of it. This is an apartment called Co-Evolve in Bangalore. We work with them also very closely. It's a very interesting builders who make sure that every aspect of their building involves green and sustainable principles and low carbon footprint. And they are also using this. Large builders are now using eco-STP. No minimal load, no power, and most important, there's no human intervention. You see how many people die every day cleaning sewage treatment plants, and we are so heartless about it. Our administrators are so heartless about it. So this, from a human point of view also, this is extremely useful and very important. ESCAP, where I used to work, had acknowledged their contribution in terms of financing water-related sustainable goals. BBC had a news about it. The other company which is also doing it in a very big scale is EcoParadigm. EcoParadigm preceded eco-STP, but they are both doing a similar type of intervention. But as they say, they are not competing, and such kind of competition sometimes is also very good. This is EcoParadigm's presence. You can see where all they are. In North America, in Europe, in India, in several parts. But we need to multiply the scale. Multiply the scale and make sure that administrators go to these type of interventions. Pollution control boards have recognized this technology, but I think we need to generalize it more. These are the projects we've done for government, for corporates, for commercial, and for community. I'm trying to keep my time within 20 minutes. I'll just stop there. I'm not sure you have any time for discussions, but I just want to, via talking about concrete interventions in the real world, I wanted to tell you that we are facing a dire future, but it should not be approached from a completely hopeless point of view. Particularly people like me and others who teach young people We can't be always giving them stark pictures of the future. We need to give also hopeful pictures. Thank you. Yeah, I'm done.
Thank you so much, Professor, for the lovely talk. I would like to hand over the stage to Mr. Anand Pendarkar.
Hi, Anand.
Hi. Thank you so much, Dr. Surendra, for the fantastic presentation. We will take up the questions for your session right now. I just wanted to point out that there were some really fantastic points that you brought up, one of scalability and the connections that has with governance, with the responsibilities of the corporate, as well as, investing human resources in making these solutions work. Equity and decentralization, the correlation that is there between that, and how that can result in a circular economy that is there. It's a little scary what you mentioned, and it's true as well that disasters are going to be accelerated and of a larger scale probably. So we need to brace ourselves to that. And biomimetics or biomimicry, as you mentioned, I think it's a very new, but not, I wouldn't say new, but it's a field that we really need to experience and express a little more, invest a lot more in that. So these are, I think, the key points what I have observed in the daily life sustainability practice that you have mentioned. So thank you so much for this presentation. If we have any questions, can you please type them out? We can take them up now, and after which we will take up Dr. Sharda's presentation. But yeah, I think, as I mentioned yesterday, that we have a yin yang process. Sometimes there might be some scary and negative talks. And here we started the day on a positive note, that there are good solutions with technology, with science that we have managed to come up with. So there's a first question by Sanjeev Naik that is there. This has come from our YouTube live. So that also shows that the YouTube live is being observed by a lot of participants. His question is that sewage water has a lot of chemicals from household cleaning items like bathroom cleaners, toiletries, and such items. How does e-stop filter or clean these dissolved chemicals?
Yeah, that's a very critical question. They actually guide you through all of this, and a certain amount load can be taken. But both Eco Paradigm and Eco STP, like I told you, in co-evolve apartments in Bangalore, there are 2 huge apartments, which are it's worth visiting if you want to go. With arrange visit, where the residents welfare association and others are also educated, because that's equally important. My industry use chemicals. And by the way, Anand, talking of not scaring up people, my whole profession is a chemical engineer. Chemical engineers have created lots of disasters. I found my penance in working on the Bhopal accident after it happened. But the point is that since I work on disasters with the UN and so on, unfortunately, we know that knowledge is also terrifying. It is absolutely very clear that scale of disasters are increasing, frequencies are increasing. So we need to deal with it, but we'll deal with the next session. But this question about the question of using chemicals is, the problem is there, but they're handling it in a particular manner, which I don't want to go into detail now in a technological sense. But anybody is interested, I think Anand has my mail, and you can mail me and I'll give you more information. Put you also directly in touch with both Eco Paradigm and Eco STP. They're also now working with smaller municipalities. Okay.
Like I mentioned yesterday to all the participants, and I'll repeat that today for everyone's noting down, that we will be sharing the details in a report together, as well as there is a climate actioneers manual that we are going to come up with, which will have all these resources, the email addresses, the websites of many of these projects that Dr. Surendra or all the earlier speakers have mentioned. That is exactly the idea of this conference, that we will disseminate this information that you can then use. You can contact these people and get such setups installed either in your company, in your offices, housing colonies, or individually at your home. I will go to the next question, which is by Rahul, who's the conference coordinator. He found the Eco STP project very interesting, His question is, how did that plant remain unaffected during the disaster?
No, mainly what happens is in normal sewage treatment plants, when large scale flooding and others happen, it is not able to handle the extra volume of water and it breaks. Here, since the biophilic design and what happens is you don't get this type of like in a, if of course in my own farm, in my house, I do use a normal septic tank, but I can afford to do it because of it's within a farm, it's confined. But in many peri-urban areas, I'm sure in lots of places, if you move away from the cities where there is no underground drainage, we're not able to give underground drainage to everybody. We give it in very small central parts of cities, in most cities. Rest of it is all septic tanks. The septic tanks break. This happened in the Kerala floods also. The septic tanks break and all the feces is out. And then, for the bacteria, they love water. They start multiplying like hell, and with hot weathers like us, they multiply very fast. Now, in these places, because of the way it's being processed in this biophilic design continuously, the bacterial load is also very low. There are details about it. So they didn't break, first of all. They didn't have that, they could take on the extra load of water, number two. Number three, if at all they're broken, as of now, I have no news of it breaking anywhere, at least in Kerala and in Tamil Nadu where they installed it. In other places, I know, but there, none of it broke, first of all. But even if it breaks, the damage will be very little because the biophilic design ensures everyday bacterial processing of the feces. So harmful bacteria is removed almost on a daily basis. Now, in a normal mechanical system treatment plant, you need oxygenation, you need power, and sometimes if the power fails, what's the power situation in our country? Quite often power fails. When power fails, then it's like a regular septic tank. Nothing is being processed. So if there is a flood or whatever happens, this comes out. More technical details, Rahul, can be shared with you. I'm just trying to give some headlines to respond to your question.
Any other questions that anybody wants to? You can raise your hand. Okay, there's a question from Ms. Purnima Palikar. Is there any maintenance, servicing, testing water done regularly in the water treatment plants?
Yeah, they're done. There are flyers available. If you go to our TSP website, tspasia.org, we have advertised both Orbin and EcoTSP. When you go and press on that link, there is a septic, there is a flush tank given picture, and it says, once you flush, do you know what happens? That you can get it as a PDF and you do it. It's regularly tested, and they give you technical details on how much, it's only 5% of the sewage load and so on and so forth. So those details can be got. And if you want, I can send you more details and put them in touch. Water is tested on a regular basis. Those 2 bottles that I showed are stuff that is taken from their tanks outside. And, brigades, large apartment complexes have now also started taking it because they find it in the long term much more useful and efficient.
So Amruta, our volunteer, has shared the TSP Asia website for all of y'all in the chat. Y'all can please note that. We can have one more question before we move on to Dr. Sharda's presentation. If anybody has any other question, please, you can either raise your hand or you can type it in the chat window. And if not, I have one question, sir,
Yes,
to you. Yeah. So in terms of scalability, big cities, whether it is Bangalore or whether it is, any of the bigger cities, how much of a government do you think this is the responsibility of the government to put these infrastructure in? And or should we pass on the cost of this to the individual consumer? Because already the consumers are paying taxes for these facilities. shouldn't there be a very large investment from the government side to handle this? It is their responsibility. Where do you pick the responsibility in your opinion?
Definitely, I believe the reason I picked on these is because I see a triangular participation. We have to see in Tamil Nadu, of course, it's happened on its own.
Right.
Several municipal corporators in smaller towns and some MLAs very cleverly have already started implementing these eco-sewage treatment plants, because they are now finding new ways of telling their constituency that their problems can be solved.
Right.
So these are individual political people whom we can approach in their constituencies. But I think we need to talk to also ministers and tell them, look, forever you're not going to chase disasters. You want to look for solutions. And they must be detailed, discussions with them to the extent possible. In my time, I'm saying my generation, meaning,
right.
we used to have these dialogues with government.
So since this question is coming, if I can just quickly, it's a short one, if you can take it. Rahul has asked that these eco-sewage treatment plants, are they more expensive than conventional ones? And how difficult is it to get consumers to convert to them?
It's very easy. Very easy based on experience. Because
no, in the sense people are agreeable to doing this very fast.
Oh, see, it's a matter of when new buildings have come up, like in brigade builders are very big builders.
Okay.
They've taken it whole scale and they're adopting it in all their
new projects.
New buildings. Old buildings also can be converted. There is a conversion process. The cost is not any higher. Costs and so on details, I have to get back to our friends on it. Right. Because it will depend on, even individual houses can do it. And it's very simple masonry construction. I showed you the slides of some of the construction parts. Cost wise, it's not very high. And plus, you get added value. No, you get manure liquid, which can be used for gardens. Yeah. That wastewater can be utilized. And some of the other water is pumped back into the flushing system, because when we have great shortage of water, we are using good drinking water for flushing our toilets. So that water also, that's what Co-Evolve has done. And if you visit Co-Evolve in Bangalore, you can see a complete system in which they have done. It's not any more expensive, which is why I'm also, in a sense, holding the flag for them. Because overall, and finally, there are very little maintenance costs. You don't have to have this regular, in conventional sewage treatment plants, the sewage has to be taken out. It's called desludging. Where do you take the sludge and put it? You normally put it in a village where I live. Fortunately, so far it doesn't happen. But all the city garbage for Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, you want nice shining cities, but the dirt comes home to where we live in the villages. So this is what we call, no, not in my backyard, in the attitude. So the sludge removal,
I think, sir, what you have done is opened out the discussion for, in fact, that's what we have done. One of our breakout sessions is going to be on waste and transportation and how the carbon footprint that comes with that. So yeah, I think you perfectly sort of, summarized that we create it somewhere and then put it into somebody else's backyard or front yard or face.
Mysore is the cleanest city in India.
Yeah.
But just come 15 kilometers towards my farm, you will find all the dirt dumped there. And I cross through it every day. Yeah, Anand, sorry.
No, so I apologize to pull you out from such a beautiful location where you are in and bring you to the city. But yeah, as I said, this is a yin yang conference. So, we will keep reminding you that this city also needs to be as green as the village that you're living in. And
now you have the great Anil Hepper there ready to implement all this with you.
Yes. But I feel that I think we don't need to migrate either from the village to the city for an employment or from the city to the village to find clean environment. I think that is the dichotomy that we should be struggling with. That one very big environmentalist from Bombay says that we don't need to clean the creek up. We should see that the creek is clean right from the beginning. Don't dirty it and then invest resources in cleaning it.
See what Singapore did.
Yeah, we want clean creek or we want clean rivers in the origin.
Read Lee Kuan Yew's biography, in which he has an entire chapter on the greening of Singapore. And it's a great pamphlet.
Lovely. So thank you for opening the day so beautifully. That was a very good start, I should say, to the day. And I would hand it over to Mrs. Purnima Palekar to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Sharda. Thank you, Dr.
I'll leave you for a while and join you soon, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay. You will come back.
Yeah. That was a wonderful talk, Professor. Now, let's move on to the second talk of the morning. This talk is on urban health hazards, and we have having with us Dr. Sharda Kulkarni. She is an MD, gynecologist, practicing in Mumbai since 1997. She is the joint director of Siddhi Hospital and Siddhilife Art Center in Borivali. A fellow of RCOG UK since 2018, she is also a trained and certified embryologist. And she has received hands-on training from various centers in Belgium, Greece, Germany, and UK. She has keen interest in nature, wildlife, dance, music, bird watching, and also reading. So I welcome Dr. Sharda Kulkarni, and I request her to share her knowledge and her own give some insights about the urban health hazards. Over to you, Doctor. Thank you.
Yes, a very good morning to all of you. It's a great honor to be on this platform at the ISC 2021. And I must thank Sprouts and Anand for this great honor and privilege. I know there's been a lot of waste of time because of the technical glitch. And so I will just move on quickly into my talk. Let's take a brief look at history and, sort of get an idea about where we were and where we are. It's sad to sort of know that one of the first planned cities of the world happened to be Mohenjo-daro, which was in the Indus civilization, and we are all descendants of the same. And look where we are now. It's a sad state of affairs that we see ourselves in today. And my previous speaker has already elaborated a lot on urbanization, the various aspects of it. And I'm sure all of you are aware about why people migrate to cities. First of all, it is the ease of living. Second, of course, the most important reason why people come to cities is for employment. Education happens to be another primary reason because most of the good educational institutes. So basically what my talk was all about was that the WHO has a model or a plan that has been put forward by it is somewhere in 2003 or 2004, where they have outlined certain goals or certain designs for healthy cities. And these have been implemented by many cities in Europe. And the basic premise is that the health of the citizens or people living in the cities has to be at the central core of all planning. And this has to be supported by good environment, good infrastructure, amenities like healthcare, education, open spaces, and the fallout of all that, the positive fallout of living in such an environment would be a boost to the economy because obviously you're increasing the productivity of the people who are living there. But unfortunately, this is not what we are seeing in many of the urban centers of the cities, Africa. And it's sad to say that 16 of the most polluted cities in the world have in India. And we come from a civilization which had the famous city of Mohenjo was world way back in 500 BC. So if we could do it, we do it now. What we see is a complete of towards
There's complete lack of planning towards infrastructure, towards sewage management, vehicular traffic, public transport, open spaces. These are practically non-existent in a city like Mumbai. So what does that lead to? It leads to a lot of stress to the residents living there, and especially for migrants. The stress of city living is too much. They cannot handle it because of culture, because of uh, after employment, because they lacking skill sets, they lack and plus the financial
Sharda, your
which
internet is a little weak.
is it
If you can switch off your camera, you'll save a little on internet, so that then we'll be able to hear you better.
Right. Is it better now?
Very, very much better.
Yeah. So what we have is a scenario.
Sorry to pause you again, Dr. Sharda. I've requested Amruta to share some of the slides so that people can also see. She will just toggle between the slides so that they can see what you are also saying. Is that good? Please go ahead. Continue, please, Dr. Sharda.
Yes, so if you can hear me, what this kind of crowded city living leads to is immense amount of stress. And the stress is not only because of social instability, but it is also financial and mental, because of crowded living spaces, long commuting hours, lack of privacy, lack of leisure time, lack of open spaces. There are certain lifestyle choices that city people make, which have an immense negative impact on their health. That leads to a tremendous rise in non-communicable diseases along with communicable ones. Not only because of the crowding are we more prone to things like, respiratory illnesses, flus, and what we saw in the COVID pandemic, that, we are much more vulnerable to these kind of phenomena. But also in the background, you have a tremendous increase in non-communicable diseases happening in our cities. Too much of diabetes, too much of high blood pressure, heart attacks happening in younger and younger people. It's not uncommon to see people in their mid-30s, early 40s succumbing to heart attacks, which is so worrisome. And this has been clearly documented by many studies done even by the Lancet. And the rise in numbers of diabetics and people with high blood pressure is not limited to just the affluent people who have access to rich food, which is available in the cities, and junk food, but is also seen in poor people who are living in shanties and slums. And these people do not have access to healthcare. That is the sad part. Because they are marginalized, because they are economically challenged, they don't have access to good quality healthcare. Unfortunately, government facilities, which are available in many of our cities, are totally inadequate to satisfy the needs of the millions of people who need their help. The other thing that we are seeing is in cities is the effect of light pollution, sleep disturbances. So many young people are struggling to get good quality sleep, and it is affecting not only youngsters but adults and small children as well, leading to behavioral problems, ADHDs. Because of the light pollution in our cities, too much of exposure to screens, young girls are coming up with problems like polycystic ovarian disease. This is a hormonal disorder that is seen much more in the urban populace. In fact, in a city like Mumbai, it has been reported that up to 25% of young adolescent girls might be having polycystic ovarian disease. And this is a problem that causes irregular menstrual cycles, and it is linked with obesity. It has an impact on the girl's future fertility. It can cause pregnancy problems and many other issues. So the main thing about city planning and the existing nature of affairs is that everything needs to be equitable. All planning, all development needs to be equitable, taking all issues or all uh, the stakeholders into consideration and giving equal importance to health and environment. And I'm sure discussions like these and fora like these are a good avenue for people to voice their opinions. And hopefully the city planners and the city governing bodies will wake up in time to do something to at least make our cities livable, making them smart cities and making them, talking about the Shanghai model and the Singapore model is just not good enough. We need to focus on health, and it needs to be given a priority. And it is something which is a very key issue, and hopefully things will improve as we go on. We can only live on hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharda. Yeah, I think one of the things that Sharda will agree with me is that she has been a trekking partner and friend for almost 30 years now. And when we go into the outdoors, there is a lot of release of all these stresses that are there. Trekking and going and gardening or doing plantation activities, whether it is urban gardening or whether it is going and working, doing community services. Maybe all of us should plan a trip to Tilonia. FES and Sprouts, should probably announce what do you call outdoor or offset sort of situation where we all can go and not only learn but also contribute. Another idea is to go to Ladakh, and look at the work that they are doing there. But we need to definitely make changes in our lifestyle is what I would conclude from Dr. Sharda's work, that there are a lot of physical stresses and emotional stresses that are there, but a lifestyle change will bring about a big difference in how we will be able to sustain ourselves for the future activities.